Why is Pope Boniface in bed? Bloody stumps for hands. What has King Philip of France done to the Pope and the Catholic Church? What is this conflict between the Church and State in the 1300s in France? During the Middle Ages, between the years 1200 and 1450, Europe is a decentralized mess with hundreds of kingdoms who are seemingly constantly at war with one another. And the Catholic Church is the one thing that unifies everyone in Europe. This unity comes from the Church's claims of authority over everyone in Europe, regardless of political boundaries or social class. And this includes the king as well. The Church is a centralized hierarchy, with the Pope at the top, only below God. The Church was in control of the calendar, determining on which days you were to pray, which days you're to celebrate, and which days you're allowed to rest. With its huge presence in Europe, the Catholic Church provides roles and services that the state cannot or will not perform. One being healthcare. The Catholic Church will establish hospitals in many places in Europe. The oldest in Paris is still functioning today. The Catholic Church also keeps the records, especially of your birth and your baptism by a priest, your marriage by a priest, and your death and burial by a priest from the Catholic Church. The Church and the clergy are also in control of the knowledge in Europe. The priests are literate and control the libraries. They also establish the universities, including the largest in Paris today, the Sorbonne, which started as a Catholic university. The role of the priest was to read and interpret the Bible. Before Europe adopts paper from the Arab world and the printing press from China, the clergy are producing books on animal skins, known as parchment. This will severely limit the amount of documents that are produced in the Middle Ages, leading to a term, the Dark Ages. During this period, the Church has grown extremely wealthy. They're the largest landowner in Europe. Nobles and merchants have become patrons of the Church. You can even buy your way into heaven through indulgences. And everyone is expected to tithe at least 10% of your income to the Church. It was this wealth that King Philip wanted to get a hold of. In the late 1200s, King Philip is fighting wars of expansion against his neighbors. Wars are always expensive, and Philip is no different. He's gone into debt to pay for these. And the wealth of the Church is what he has his eye on. It's when Philip decides to tax the clergy that this conflict will really come to a head. Does Philip have the right to tax the Church within France? Boniface responds by saying no. One sword ought to be subordinated to the other, and non-spiritual authority subjected to spiritual authority. Whoever resists this power, thus ordained by God, resists the ordinance of God. Furthermore, we declare, we proclaim, we define that it is absolutely necessary for salvation that every human creature be subject to the Roman pontiff. Boniface VIII, 1302. In response to Boniface's papal bull, Philip will have the Pope beaten and arrested, where he'll die 3 weeks later. Giovanni Vianney describes this event about 20 years after it happened. And when his enemies came to him, they mocked him with vile words and arrested him, scorned him and threatened him. In this pain, shame, and torment, the great Pope Boniface was prisoner among his enemies for 3 days. The grief which had hardened in the heart of Pope Boniface, by reason of the injury which he had received, produced in him a strange malady, so that he gnawed at himself as if he were mad. And in this state he passed from life on the 12th day of October in the year of Christ, 1303. After Boniface dies, for the next 100 years, the papacy will be in France, known as the Avignon Papacy. The popes will not only be French, but they'll reside in France as well. And what happened to the Knights Templar and the Jewish financiers who loaned money to Philip to fight these wars? He had them declared heretics, arrested and killed, and seized their property for the state of France. Over the next few centuries, the French state will continue to challenge the role of the Church in France, eventually leading to the French Revolution itself, where the Catholic Church will be banned. The arrival of the printing press and people like Martin Luther during the Protestant Reformation would also prove to be a major headache for the Catholic Church, further fragmenting its grip on Europe. As the Catholic Church loses its grip on an increasingly Protestant Europe, it'll turn its attention to new lands, the Americas, Africa, and Asia, for conversions. The Jesuit missionaries will become a crucial part of Spanish and Portuguese colonialism in the 16th and 17th centuries. Boniface's murder can be seen as an early example of the growing conflict between church and state in Europe. Hey you! Thanks for watching World History for You. Please subscribe and share with your friends. We'll see you next time.